Hi all, Todd from True Financial Coaching. So last week I did a video given the fact that there's some banks in the news who have collapsed. What would happen if your bank collapsed, right? Focusing a lot on how FDIC insurance works. If you're interested in that, go look at my March 13th video. Today I want to talk about what would happen if my brokerage account collapsed, right? We all have accounts at either Vanguard or Schwab, Merrill Lynch, E-Trade, Fidelity, either outright brokerage account or we have an IRA with them. What would happen if they collapsed? Do I have FDIC insurance there? So that's what I want to talk about in this video. And as we get older, that's actually more important than what would happen if our bank collapsed, right? Because we have more assets growing in our brokerage accounts than we do our bank accounts, obviously. So let me talk kind of a fundamental difference as to how a bank account works versus a brokerage account works. And because that's your first layer of protection, is this difference, right? So when you open an account at a bank, you put $100 in there. The bank's going to take that $100 and they're going to do something with it, right? They're going to, lend it out as part of a mortgage or a small business loan, or they're going to buy a T-note, but they're going to invest the cash, right? So if they do that poorly and it bankrupts the bank, that's when you need to rely on your FDIC insurance probably, right? Well, that's not the same with a brokerage account, right? So you open up a brokerage account, you put $100 in there, that's going to stay as cash. Your broker's not going to do anything with that $100. They're going to keep it in the form of cash because that's how you've chosen so far to invest that money or not invest that money. But let's say you put money in your brokerage account, then a week later you buy 100 shares of, let's say, General Motors, okay? You now, the cash leaves your account because you spent it on General Motors, and now you have 100 shares of General Motors showing up in your account. Well, again, this account is not going to show up on the books and records or the financial statements of the broker. So let's say you're using Schwab. Schwab's not going to reflect an asset and a liability of whatever's in your account, the cash, the General Motors stock. It's probably more similar, your brokerage account, to how a safe deposit works at a bank, right? So you open up an account at a bank, whatever cash you put in it, the bank's going to go invest it. You open up a safe deposit box and you put a $100 bill in your safe deposit box. That $100 bill is just going to sit there, right? The bank's not going to go in and take that $100 out and go do something with it. You can put a gold watch in that box. You can put a toothbrush in that box, right? Whatever you put in that box, the bank is just holding it for you. And that's a similar concept to how a brokerage account works. You open up the brokerage account, you invest, you kind of buy and sell things, but whatever you're holding at that moment in that account, the broker's holding it for you. You might be using the broker to help you buy and sell those things because you need their help to do that. But whatever the result of that buying and selling is, whatever you're holding is similar to a safe deposit. They're just holding it for you at that point. So if they go out of business, this is still safe. It's segregated from their own books and records. Okay, so that's kind of the first layer of protection. The second layer of protection is the fact that there is insurance on brokerage accounts as well. It's not FDIC, it's SIPC or SIPC. The S there stands for Securities Investor Protection Corporation. So that's protecting your account. How that works is you have $500,000 of insurance for any brokerage accounts that are in your name. If you and your spouse also have a brokerage account that sits in both of your names, that's a different category of accounts. You have $500,000 on any accounts in your name. You have $500,000 of any joint accounts. If you have a traditional IRA, that's another $500,000 of insurance. You have a Roth IRA, that's another $500,000 of insurance. So there's a lot of layers of protection. The best layer of protection is the segregation between your broker's books and records and what they're just holding for you. But even beyond that, you have this insurance protection of up to $500,000. Okay. So what does SIPC insurance not cover? It does not cover how well you're investing your money. So if you buy that General Motors stock and General Motors would go out of business, you're going to lose money because that's a decision you made or you hired a financial advisor to make. But that was not a decision made by your broker. They're just holding that investment for you. If that investment goes bad, you're at risk. You could still lose money. It does not cover things that aren't securities. So if you have futures contracts, cryptocurrency, currency contracts, these things are not securities. It's not covered by the insurance. Basically, like stocks and bonds, these things are securities. The account holding those securities in the account are protected, is probably the better way of saying it. So, and then a lot of your big players, the Vanguards and Merrills of the world, they also buy even their own insurance. So you're very well protected, I think, in a brokerage account. So a couple of very well-known examples of brokers going bankrupt are Bear Stearns and Lehman Brothers during the last financial crash in 07, 08 kind of time period. So what happened with those, right? So Bear Stearns was on the verge of going bankrupt. JP Morgan came in and bought them. That's what the regulators try to do, is they try to find a competitor who's going to come in and buy the broker that's about to default. So that's what happened in Bear Stearns' case. So any retail accounts, that's you and I as individuals having accounts at Bear Stearns, our account stayed intact. It's just that instead of having an account with Bear Stearns, we now have an account with JP Morgan. Okay. Shortly after that, Lehman Brothers was on the verge of collapse. The Fed and the Treasury Department were trying to find someone to buy Lehman Brothers. They were unable to find someone to do that. And so Lehman Brothers went bankrupt. They went out of business. Again, retail investors having accounts at Lehman Brothers, the broker, accounts stayed intact, and those retail investors, nobody lost any money. Well, who did lose money as a result of the Lehman's collapse? Right? You might have heard, like, well, didn't a lot of people lose money? So the people who lost money were those people who were investing in Lehman Brothers. So Lehman Brothers had commercial paper and their own bonds that they were issuing that you can invest in. Again, so that's thinking of it like if you had a brokerage account with Lehman Brothers, that account was safe. But again, if you made a bad decision, like my General Motors example, like what if General Motors went bankrupt and you had shares of stock, you would lose. Well, if you had Lehman Brothers debt in there that you had bought, Lehman Brothers bonds that you had bought, and Lehman Brothers, the holding company, goes out of business, that investment in your account would go bad. So it just might be something to keep in mind if you're having your brokerage account at Merrill Lynch. It's Bank of America, Merrill Lynch. They're a combined company. Maybe you don't want to buy Bank of America stock. You can, but just keep in mind you are exposing yourself there. Maybe double exposure there. So anyway, it's something to keep in mind. But I think of brokerage accounts as being very secure because you've got that layer of segregation and you have insurance on top of it. But anyway, I hope that helps explain the difference between how a broker collapse would work versus how a bank collapse would work. Hit me up with any DMs, emails, texts if you want to talk about it more. And if you like getting these videos and you're not getting it directly from TRU Financial Coaching, hit follow on the TRU Financial Coaching account so you can get them directly. And we'll see you next time. See ya.